She's not looking. I'm trying to get her to lick my face.
You look, you're that's funny.
Oh, who's a good girl? Oh,
Nice.
all right.
And then so I was gonna have this be part of our video, but after watching it some more, it wasn't. So there's this soccer documentary called Sunderland Till I Die, and they got like a new coach. So the new coach was introduced, like white guy, he was introducing himself to all the players, and he went up to one of the like young black players and went for the grip, and they just did the first part of it. They didn't do like the clasp.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna tell Rob about this. It was super awkward because like the black person just kind of like sat there, but I kept watching, and I think that's a thing in England. I don't know if you know this, but they just do like the clasp. They don't like grip, but like everyone, they don't shake hands like this. Well, I don't want to say like for business purposes they may, but like when they're saying like what's up to people or whatever, they just do that and then just let go. And I thought it was weird. I didn't know that was a thing.
Good morning. This is Thursday, June 25th, and I'm Rob Isner with Cuyahoga County Extension 4-H programs. And this is, we switched it. Instead of 5 questions today, we're going to do 3 questions about race. And I'm here with Imani Scruggs. And it's your turn to go first, I think.
All right, cool beans. So do you or many white people you know suffer from white guilt? And meaning just like, I guess, guilty about your position in society and seeing how it affects other like populations.
I totally do. I feel guilt about lots of different things, but yeah, definitely. And it's like when I'm in the schools and things, whether with kids or black teachers and administrators, and I'm always, I don't know how to put it, almost like embarrassed for some of the things that white people do. Like I feel that reflects on me too. So yeah, I have a lot of guilt about the past and the present as well. Even to the extent, like there was some small town in Ohio, a woman, middle-aged woman, just wanted to get involved. She organized a little protest in her town, and like 60 or so people showed up, and about halfway through, 600 people just from the countryside show up in trucks with guns and Confederate flags, and they just start harassing the protesters, and it just got so ugly. There's so much hatred in people. I just don't know where the hatred comes from, because as a white person, we do have so much and so much benefit, and so I don't know where the rage inside them comes from. I think a lot of white people have that guilt, and it might not be, I think it's like subconscious a lot. And I think that's one thing that keeps white people from interacting with black people, is almost an assumption like this person, like, may not really like me or like my race because of what we've done. That might be overthinking it a little bit, but I think there is a lot of white guilt, and that is a hindrance to making some positive connections. Does that make sense?
Yeah, made a lot of sense. This is a good answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's theorized that like in, I don't know how many generations, 10, 20 generations, a couple thousand years, whatever, with the way we travel and intermarry, and as our gene pool becomes more combined, we're kind of growing towards a future ancestor that like one total we
race.
We had more in common than we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could, like the next generation kind of, and this is not crazy science manipulating the gene pool thing, this is more of a thought exercise. But if we could take like everybody's skin tone currently alive, blend it into one uniform color, and have the next generation of children born all be that same color, do you think it would help things? How would you feel about that as a concept?
That's a good question. That's interesting. Do you watch South Park?
No, I never have.
South Park did an episode.
I'm aware of it, but did they?
Yeah, where it was like one, like they were orange, bald, like, I won't say mixed gendered is the wrong term, but they looked like non-gendered, so they're just like all flat, they all look the same. So it's like just the same people all the way across the board. Like there was some way, I forget which, that they chose to still kind of like discriminate. Rick and Morty kind of did an episode about this where all the people looked the same, but some had different like noses or different like nipples and stuff like that. And like they still discriminate each other against for it. So I think naturally as humans, we are like evolutionarily conditioned in a way to look for different like traits and reasons to discriminate against one another, just off of like a tribe mentality and safety kind of thing. But with that being said, it'd be interesting to see, because like at least race would be out of the way, right? There'd be no differentiating between person to person based off skin color. I still think we would, so those examples were to say, like, I still think we would find something to discriminate against each other over. But it would cut down one very serious barrier really quickly, but then you're doing away with a lot of the like really cool cultural things that come with different races, but those aren't tied to the skin color, it's just tied to the culture. So, I think it would help in a lot of ways. I think we would still find some reason to hate each other, but yeah, I think that'd be cool. It would cut out probably the biggest one.
But we would lose a lot as well.
We would. I think I think we'd lose a lot of cultural things, which again aren't tied to skin color. So I don't know why we would lose them, but like the way the world has evolved in a lot of ways, they are tied to skin color. So we would lose a lot of that. So that part of it makes me think it wouldn't be worth it to lose all of it, but seeing people not treat each other like crap based off the color of their skin would be very nice.
Yeah, so. You're right though. We'd discriminate based on height or eye color. We'd find something.
Yeah, we'd find something.
There was a good Star Trek, the original Star Trek from back in the 60s. And these two aliens, one was chasing the other, one was a criminal, one was police. And they were split down the middle. Half their face was pitch black, half was white, like, mine, painted white. And the crew could not figure out for the whole episode why they hate each other so much. And then at the end, he's like, oh, isn't it obvious to you? The right half of his face is black and the left is white, whereas the left half of, so basically they split down the middle, but just flipped and they hated each other for that.
They say you fear what you don't know. And I do think this applies a lot to different like races and cultures. So I was wondering how your exposure to Black people when you were younger changed your outlook towards them, and then how you think this can be achieved for white people who may not have the opportunity to meet very many Black people, particularly in more rural communities.
This is one of the sensitive, I'll just say what I'm thinking. I don't know how it'll sound.
Mm-hmm. Go for it. That's the point.
The kids in the neighborhood, remember I said we had the community ball. So a lot of times I'd play with them, or if we were doing something else, they'd just come to the door and we'd give them the ball. And the ball always came back. So it wasn't like, so my first experience with kids, with Black kids, was they borrow stuff and they bring it back, mm-hmm. and they take care of my stuff when they have it. Whereas if, without that experience, I think a lot of white people think if I give this, this Black person's going to steal it, they're not going to return it. So I think just early on, just that humanized Black people to me made me respect them, because there was a lot of white kids. It never got stolen, but maybe they just leave it sitting by the court. They wouldn't make the effort to walk up to the house and return it. So yeah, I think that's kind of a germinal thing in my experience. Just my first interactions with Black kids were all very positive.
Oh, no. Okay, good.
Was there another part to your question?
Yeah, how do you think that can be achieved for like white people in rural, not just rural communities, white people that don't get around a lot of Black people, but like particularly in rural communities?
That's what I kind of keep going back to, is I think white people aren't going to get over that. The way you phrased it at the beginning was good. I don't remember what it was. I don't think they're going to get over that fear of the difference without spending time with black people. In rural communities, that's hard. So I don't know what advice I'd give to people who just by geography or life experience just don't have the occasion very often. But even in the workplace, and that's the thing too, I think most white people would tell you that the black people that they do interact with, they like, they respect. I don't know why it doesn't translate to the whole race, but for some people it just doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think in general, even when they get to interact, and then going back to your guilt question at the beginning, I think it's just, in general, white people are pretty uncomfortable around black people. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But it's not on black people to make them feel comfortable. That's what white people need to understand. We've done enough. We need to take charge of this and get over it ourselves and not expect black people to make themselves acceptable to us. We just need to be accepting regardless.
I know.
How do you personally feel about reparations, and do you think there's a kind of consensus in the black community, or do you think opinions are all over the place with regards to it?
I do not know if there's I don't think there's a consensus. To be honest, I won't say it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. So I've never bothered to really bring the topic out to anyone. I've talked to one other white person about it before. I honestly don't know if I've had any conversations with any black people about reparations. So I don't know about the consensus in the black community. I would assume there's not one. It'd be great, thanks, but I forget how much they gave Japanese people after, I believe have Native Americans gotten reparations yet? I think they may have. I don't know. Japanese did.
I don't know if we consider the reservations and funding them through that.
Oh Lord, I hope
if so, that's I know.
Yeah, no, I hope we don't consider that.
But I don't know.
So that's all to say, what would they give us, $1,000, $1,500 each, that people would do a mixed bag of things on. Some will save it, invest it, use it towards the future. Some would blow it immediately. Some would spend it on stuff they really need, like food, housing, whatever. But I think if the government took whatever they were going to give in reparations and just put it into our schools and our communities, that would be fine. So I would love to see reparations in that form. I don't think I would just want to be handed a check and be like, hey, sorry about slavery, here's $1,000. No, that's crap. But if they're like, hey, here's, I was going to say $100 million, which would obviously be such a low ball for all they've done to us. Here's $40 billion, $50 billion. We're going to invest it in your schools across the country, make sure none of your communities are in the middle of food deserts anymore, give you better housing opportunities, clean up your neighborhoods, clean up your streets. If you've driven through East Cleveland, you know what I'm talking about. Just as far as potholes, stuff like that, cleaning up the infrastructure, putting better teachers in your schools, more books, stuff like that, investing in your educations. Those type of reparations would be good. Forgiving some of your college loans, instead of taking a lot of the drug and nonviolent offenders out of prison. Those would be nice reparations, but handing us a check, I don't think in the long term would do a whole lot.
Those are all good ideas. I thought too, fully funding the historically black colleges and universities, making college free for kids to attend.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Because we think about it in government terms, but there are some and I should have looked up some, although I probably don't want to name because they might be donors to Ohio State, but there's some very large existing corporations that started with slave labor, and they kind of, they've been around that long, and because they didn't have the labor costs, they outcompeted, some northern businesses and things. And even, I'm surprised there haven't been, or I'm curious to see if there ever will be lawsuits filed by descendants of slaves that they should get some of the profits from that company has made over the years.
Yeah, that they're owed. Yeah.
Another angle.
who knows? But it is interesting seeing. Like, I think the Washington Redskins just had to take one of their previous owners' names out of their like Ring of Fame or whatever, a bunch of like statues around stadiums from like previous racist owners from different like sports teams in America have been like taken down. So it is interesting seeing like the government and communities reaching back and like taking this like racist part of history out, in like not a bad way, in a good way. They're taking all of the respect that was given to these people's names away from them, which is beautiful. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they try to do that in a more like tangible or literal sense.
Yep. All right, thanks.
Okay, third and potentially last one for today. We'll see where our time's at once we're both done. So there's a stereotype that Black people are scared of like water or the outdoors, particularly in regards to camping. So that obviously doesn't apply across the board, but I've seen it in some cases. I get why the stereotype exists, I guess. So are there any things that white people are notoriously afraid of, and how much credence do you give to stereotypes in general? And that second part isn't to like trip you up. I'm always curious about people's opinions on stereotypes.
I think some are can be harmless, kind of humorous if we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
The trouble is when you've got an oppressor and an oppressed race, it's hard to take things lightly all the time. But we were having a discussion the other day in one of our Zooms. You had mentioned some stereotypes that you thought were true, that were funny. White people, I can't think, do you know of any? Or have you heard it? The one I think about with, and I don't even know if it's a stereotype, but we were talking about the dog. I've noticed that the kids in the schools are really scared of dogs. Even animals in general, even baby chicks. I've had kids not even want to pet a baby chick, which is crazy. And I attribute that to, I'm guessing most dogs in some of the poorer neighborhoods are, guard dogs for protection.
Mean dogs, yeah.
And that kids, you grow up with that, you're going to be scared of them. But, go back to yours. Do you know of any not know of any, but have questions about a white stereotype in particular? Because I can't think of any.
No, the ones that come to mind aren't all that interesting, to be honest. It's like white men can't jump, or like so like that's a super specific one, but just like less athletic than Black people, I guess, and then like a lack of rhythm.
Yes, yeah, that's an easy one too. That white people we have to admit it. We're just not as good athletically, so it's kind of a stereotype, but there's some truth to it too. And again, we're speaking in generalities.
Yeah, generalizations.
There's some great white athletes too. But,
yeah, obviously.
And a lot of the premier athletes now seem to be mixed race. And I'm not going to name any because I don't know if they are mixed race and what their race is. But lighter skinned, I guess. There's some. That's why that got me thinking about that. I think we all bring so much positive that when we merge those things, whether it's actually physically or just mentally or emotionally, I think it makes us better people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes you more well-rounded.
Okay, last question. I think, and I could be completely wrong, but the soul food I've had in town, there's a few places that teachers would go, and I would get it. It's one of my favorite foods, and it actually reminds me, my grandmother in West Virginia, kind of Appalachian West Virginia, her cooking really reminds me of soul food. So I think there was a similar influence. So are you a fan, and are there restaurants you would recommend in town? And why don't we see more like mainstream popular soul food restaurants? And is soul food the right term to use? Should I be calling it something else?
Yeah, no, soul food is the right term. Recommendations for places: Chicago Chicken and Waffles is pretty good. What's that place? What's the place in Shaker Heights called? Oh gosh, Um, oh, and there's two of them. They're connected with something else. I'm not gonna remember. I'll try to have that come to mind sometime later. There's two places that come to mind. Chicago Chicken Waffle is one. That's the other. But I don't eat a ton of soul food. I like soul food. So like my family, or at least my grandpa and like grandma cook it. My parents don't cook it a whole lot. It's good. It's not super healthy for you.
Yeah.
Of course, it's very like greasy food usually. So I don't cook it myself because of that. But like, I mean, it's delicious if it's done right. And why we don't see more of it, because most people like soul food. Like the one going back stereotypes, the one stereotype about Black people always kills me is the fried chicken thing. Because like, who do you know that eats meat that doesn't like fried
Right.
chicken?
Everybody loves fried chicken and everybody loves watermelon. So
Yeah, yes. Seriously, those kill me. Yeah. But yeah, most people like soul food. So I don't know why it's not more of a thing. It's going to be hard to, it would be difficult to make it a thing now, because as a country we're becoming more like conscious of what we eat in our like nutritional value. So like soul food's probably not gonna,
a
pick off
healthy version of it wouldn't be as good.
good. Yeah, nearly. And that's the thing, is so like it's probably not the easiest thing to cook right, not overdo, because you're using a lot of like fat and a lot of high calorie foods.
And like lard, like animal fat, not just
Exactly. Yeah.
vegetable fat.
Exactly. So yeah, that may be difficult to like replicate in a good way. But like one soul food I will denounce is chitlins, because that my grandma eats chitlins, but I don't think anyone else in my family, my aunt might, but like I don't really think anyone else in my family eats chitlins. You know what chitlin? Oh, yeah. That's not, it is soul food, kind of soul food, but like it is literal slave food. Like it is the like scraps they used to feed slaves. So like of all foods that Black people didn't get away from, I would think that would be the one thing they would be like, we're not eating this anymore, because this is used to give us is like throwaways. And it's just gross. It smells horrible. You have to slather it in like hot sauce to even make it bearable. I don't get why chitlins are still a thing. So I will denounce chitlins, but the rest of soul food's really good. I don't eat it a ton.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it.